weather and Doppler information. So with that said, let's get into the meat of it, analytics. We report on a lot of different things. So Georgia DOT is our client, RTOP is our project, and Matt Glasser is my project manager. So Matt has his executives that he has to report to, and we have to report to Matt. And in addition to Matt, we have about 40 plus stakeholders within the Atlanta market that we coordinate with. Those are the cities and counties and community improvement districts that have a stake in this program. It's either their assets or the mobility within the region, within their jurisdiction that this program impacts. So we need to provide information to them about what the program is doing and what are the impacts of what it is that we're doing. So we started developing various types of templates, and these are different types of templates. This is not money associated with them like Jason was talking about. We started developing various types of templates that we could push out in terms of information sharing with both GDOT as well as our various stakeholders. One of those templates is called a corridor impact study. So anytime that there is an incident of any kind that causes us to take some kind of an action in order to manage that incident, and we're showing an example here. It's an accident along I-75 that has caused multiple lanes to be closed. That's going to cause diversion to a parallel arterial. And actually, this is Moreland Avenue, but I-20. And these type of events occur on a daily basis. So we try and capture these. And by developing these templates and the data that RITIS provides, this doesn't take a whole lot of effort. For us to do a corridor impact study, we can get it done now in less than 15 minutes of an operator's time. And this would be something that is generated, it's placed in the folder, and over a course of a month, then we can refer back to these and maybe use them as training tools or discussion tools with our stakeholders to let them know what it was that we did, how we did it, and also document our activities in case we need to refer back to them for various reviews that the department wanted to do. So we do a lot of routine reporting to the department. One of the things that we do is a monthly report. In the monthly report, we capture, using RITIS data, the delay cost shown by average cost per hour, daily cost, as well as the monthly cost. Additionally, we report on whether we have improved our device and various other KPIs in terms of the performance. I know you guys cannot read it, and I'm not expecting you guys to read it. I just want to show you the format here. And with the green and the red metrics that you see on the top left. And then one of the new things that we introduced about maybe a year ago, once we start seeing what amount of data was available to us that we could mine through the RITIS platform, is the bottleneck report. So each one of the zones, and we have 4 zones in RTOP 1 and there's 4 zones in RTOP 2, each one of the zones gets a quarterly or monthly, as well as a quarterly, bottleneck report, which is shown just beneath the matrix that I was talking to you on the left-hand side. And we're going to get into that in more detail here in a minute and how we use that. So under the quarterly, we'll report on the TTI, BTI, and the PTI to the department and capture speed. And so now not only are we capturing the travel time reliability, but we're also capturing the real travel time speeds, as well as whether we are pushing throughput up or we're decreasing throughput due to the various strategies that we deployed during that period of time. And then we capture the dollar amounts associated with each one of those zones and sum that up across all of the program. So for the program, under, I believe this was the last quarter's report, we had garnered $2.5 million worth of quarterly savings as a result of our activities. Now, the one thing I will say is the volume data. Georgia DOT is working with the folks at the CATT Lab to link our volume data, because I do believe that the volume data is a little light, and for our analytics has shown that we probably are capturing a bigger benefit than what we are. One of the things that we talked about was the quarterly and the monthly bottleneck report. So for each zone, we get a bottleneck report generated on a monthly basis. It talks about where is the highest delay associated with what link within that zone. As example, you'll see that quarter, the ranking is on the left-hand side, and it says where it was in the previous quarter. So we hope to have had bottlenecks that end up graduating from the program because of the level of effort that we put into them every quarter, and it allows us to focus on the program's limited resources, both in terms of manpower as well as contracting power, if there is infrastructure changes that are required, to be focused where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. So the table that you see shows where we are and then where it has been. So going to the next slide, this is an example of something that in quarter 4 of 2018, it was ranked number 4. That meant it was the 4th worst bottleneck in my zone 2. And through the efforts that we put into it, through retiming and adjusting the timing, as well as introduction of some new cycle lanes, we were able to remove that bottleneck from the top 10 list. And in quarter 1 of 2019, it became ranked number 14. That's how we use this tool. And this is how the department can see the value of the program that we're helping him run. Other changes, we identified things that are deficiencies in terms of the geometric. The example that you're looking at here is from one of our corridors in the northwest side of town, and there was a new development that came in, introduced 700 apartment complexes. There was no geometric improvement made to the intersection. And we noticed through the analytics that we did on the RITIS data that all of a sudden this intersection that was never on our list, because it's not that major of an intersection, because it was on one side just a shopping center, has shown up as a rank 5 on our top 10 list for that zone. So the zone manager for that area works with the district office, introduces a new what they call quick response project with the GDOT District 6 office, and introduces additional left turn lanes that allows the traffic that was queuing into the left turn pocket onto the through lanes to have better storage, and for us to reduce the time to serve that left turn. Now that takes a little longer than 1 quarter to do, and as you see that quarter 3 2018 we were ranked number 5 through the changes that we made in cooperation with the district office, geometric changes and timing changes. We were able to reduce it down to rank number 42, where it was prior to the introduction of those 700-unit apartment complex. We do holiday analysis on a routine basis. We do all of the major holidays, specifically the Christmas and Thanksgiving are pretty major events, especially around some of our zones that house the regional malls, and the 4th of July fireworks, and and other major events that we're not going to discuss here because Matt's going to present on them at a later date, like the big Super Bowl. So we also use RITIS to evaluate our timing change results, and then we report this information back to our stakeholders because RTOP does not really own any of the traffic signals that we operate. They're all owned by our stakeholders. Through a memorandum of understanding that the department has with the various counties and cities, we are provided access to those devices in support of their operation and maintenance. So we are not replacing any of the local agencies with the effort that we're doing. So we need to communicate what we do with the local agencies on a regular basis and let them know what benefits the program is providing to their motorists and to their infrastructure. So these are some other examples, and the part that I really want to focus on is the bottom right quadrant. I think it's great that not only I have State Route 85 as a bottleneck, and it defines where the bottleneck is, but I can actually, within a route, I can define sub-bottlenecks within my corridor. And that allows my engineers that I have in the field to really dig down and identify what the problem is. If it's a capacity problem, then what we do is that we refer that project to a different program within the department for their review, evaluation, analysis, and recommendation for possibly capacity adding or geometric change evaluation. And that's called Operational Improvement Program. If we get a call or we review something and it seems to be a safety concern because of the configuration of the intersection, we refer that project to the safety program. So over the last year, we have probably, between the two RTOP programs, we have probably developed hundreds of recommendations or ideas for the various other programs within the department for them to consider in their evaluation as far as whether they should study a certain activity or fund a design of a new improvement at one of the bottlenecks along the RTOP corridors. I keep pressing the down arrow, forgetting that I got to go to the arrow on the right here. We also have generated collaterals that the department can use both with their executive management as well as our stakeholder management that are easy to read, they're graphic, and will not take a significant amount of time for them to see what benefits the program is delivering in their jurisdiction. And we can, through the use of RITIS, we are able to kind of divide that pie however way we need to. We could do it on our RTOP zones, we could do it on a corridor basis, we could do it based on jurisdictional boundaries, we could do it based on congressional districts, however way we need to do it, that the tool is flexible enough that allows us to do that and provide those type of collaterals that could allow us to get the support that we need from various other GDOT programs or the management. This is another version of the same thing as you just saw on the other side, but this is designed so that it could be communicated via Twitter and social media platforms. And with that, I think I nailed it right at 20 minutes.
Very good, Shahram. That was a lot of good information. You too have used the tool in many different ways to meet the needs of GDOT. So great examples of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had one question along the way from Michelle, but it was more of, I think, of a data kind of question. So Michael Pack answered that about how you could use GIS to prioritize your segments by PTI. But I see some others typing right now, so we'll just give them a minute. No. So while we're waiting for the questions, there's one. Matt Glasser says, prior to using this tool, what was your primary way of identifying problem location?
Well, we were using an infrastructure-based Bluetooth sniffer platform. The difficulty that we had with that was the maintenance of the field infrastructure. And as you all know, working for the government agencies, there are gaps within the funding. There might be a period of time that we did not have access to any maintenance dollars. And if we lost devices during that period of time, then we were basically driving blind for a bit until we could get around to fixing those devices. And then in addition to that, the program is fluid. So over the years, the program started with 240 intersections, and it's now about 1,800 intersections. So as the program grows, we no longer, with RITIS, we no longer have to invest on the infrastructure side as far as collecting the travel time data. Now we can just have access to the data as even for an event. Let's just say that there's again, let's not use that one. Let's say the Atlanta Motor Speedway race. During that race event, there are 2 corridors within RTOP, but then we will monitor and support the district on operation of at least 5 other corridors that normally would not be in the program. And RITIS gives us access to data along all of those corridors rather than just the ones that we had the infrastructure on previously.
Okay, very good. Nick On asked, what formula or model do you use for your cost-saving calculations?
Actually, believe it or not, I do not know the answer to that because that is something that RITIS provides us. So that I think that question would be better answered by somebody from CATT Lab rather than me. We are adopting whatever it is that the system has adopted. So I'll let somebody else.
I think Matt Glasser chimed in and said that you use the RITIS congestion cost tool.
Yes, sir.
So is that the user delay cost tool I think you're probably talking about, Matt? Yeah, so the user delay cost widget. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that's correct. So, what Shahram was showing you was, I mean, it's the same way. I mean, CATT Lab made it pretty easy. You just hop on there. We select the corridor that we're looking at, and depending on the specific thing that we are trying to do, we might look at last year. Like if we were doing a May to May comparison, we might look at May 2019 versus May 2018. And just do the cost compare that way. We may go back to the previous month. So again, we may look at April 2019 versus May 2019. So look at the cost that way as well.
Very good. And Michael put the link there. Michael Pack put the link there to how the UDC costs are calculated. So that's helpful if you have further questions on that. There's another question from Sanhita, and she asks if you've had the opportunity to synthesize the RITIS bottleneck results with ATSPM results or data.
I think I would need a little clarification. What do you mean by synthesize versus the ATSPM data? The ATSPM data gives us information more about the infrastructure. We're not using the ATSPM data to evaluate travel time reliability. We're using the ATSPM data to develop and report on localized intersection operation. we're using RITIS to evaluate and report on and monitor corridor operation and travel time reliability. So those are two different tools performing two separate functions for us on that.
Okay. So hold on one second. So we did Sanhita's question, and then Aiden, I think, asked, how did you estimate active traffic signal timing change benefit? Did you use travel time from RITIS?
Yes, we used the travel time from RITIS, and we used the same methodology as we were just describing, Matt was talking about earlier. So we used the period of time that the timing, well, the old timing was in place versus the new timing that we put in.
All right, and then Nick asks, for the signal retiming project, have you evaluated crashes before and after the improvement?
We have not. That is something that the department, so the department has asked us to now that the program has matured and we've gained a lot of the low-hanging fruits, the department has asked us to not shift our focus, but also concentrate on maintaining a focus on safety. Until recently, as the RTOP stands for Regional Traffic Operations Program, we thought of ourselves as purely an operations program. And that is something that the department has requested for us to get more involved in and provide input to and use our engineering capabilities to evaluate. But until now, my answer would be no, we have not. But we do look at crash data where we have made strategic changes, such as, for example, the first flashing yellow arrow in the state was deployed as part of the RTOP program. So we do keep track of those kind of changes where we have made timing or phasing changes that are big changes, like introduction of the flashing yellow arrow. And then we switch that operation of the flashing yellow arrow by time of day. So we keep track of that to make sure that what we're doing is not adversely impacting safety. And if it does, for us to go to a more restrictive operation based on time of day for that type of operation. So we do use it in that term, but not for every signal timing modification that we do.
Okay, good. And then I think one last question from Kara Schwartz. She asked if any DOT was using RITIS in place of traffic count. I wasn't sure if she meant for volumes, both. Okay, so for volumes, I think that goes back to what Denise said earlier, where there's a working group in the I-95 Corridor Coalition, and that's trying to decide, when will probe data be able to be used for volume or traffic count type information. So I think that's something, to my knowledge, that's something that's just happening right now. I'm not sure it's quite ready for prime time, but please someone jump in if I'm wrong and clarify that. The second part is, I said, do you mean in place of traffic counts altogether? And we actually did something in North Carolina where we looked at some of the traffic counts we were doing, and we looked at the probe data, and we decided that in some places we were just going to use travel times because it really was good enough for some of the work we were doing. So we have sort of changed the amount of traffic counts that we do based on using RITIS more and more. Does anyone else have any things to share with Kara?
Kelly, just to chime in, yes, the volume and turning movement project, the game plan is to see the ability to capture real-time volumes from probe data using GPS traces. So phase 2 is trying to look at how to operationalize, do some analysis, compare results, validate results, and then operationalize that whole process. Okay? So it's in process, I guess is the word.
Very good. All right, let's take this last question. Ed Azimi says, when you suggest corridor improvements, how far back do you analyze the crossing route and corridor length?
How far back? When we suggest corridor improvements in terms of geometric improvements for the other programs, or are we talking about doing corridor improvements that are timing improvements or phasing improvements? So if it's something that we're going to look at as an example, there are 3 locations right now that we have proposed to the department to eliminate left turns and go to, since we had Jason on the call earlier, to do Michigan left. And so for those, we look at a cordon that encompasses a larger area than just the intersection, because we know we're going to impact neighboring and crossing streets. In other cases, we submit a safety improvement project or an operational improvement project simply based on its location as a standalone project.
All right. Very good. Well, I think, yes, Ed says thank you. So with that, Shahram, thank you so much. That was a lot of good information. And folks, feel free to follow up with Shahram and ask any follow-up questions. But with that, we will go ahead to our next portion of the agenda. Whoops.
Oh, you can delete all that. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go through our next portion, and I'll turn the slides over to Michael Pack, who's going to tell us what's new and what's coming for RITIS.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, you sound good.
So,
take it away, Michael.
Thank you. So some major developments recently. We've built a brand new tiling infrastructure. Tiles are what we use to generate all of the maps, all of the speed data from Interx here and TomTom. They get overlaid on top of the map. This is a pretty major update that we've been working on for a long time. It generates the tiles much faster than it used to, especially when you're looking at really large screens. If you're putting RITIS up on a large display wall, like in your traffic management center, now you can see more roads within the RITIS map all at once. And this is ultimately paving the way to be able to ingest agency-specific tiles and reduce our dependence on third-party mapping providers. So this is a good thing for everyone. Can help keep our costs down as much as possible. But you should see some significant tiling speed improvements. It's hard to demo this when you're just using slides, but there are some really nice smooth transitions between all the tiles now, kind of an animated transition between each, and it allows you to dive much deeper into the map in a much faster way. So enjoy that and check it out. Some other stuff we've recently done is we've just added new transit routes into the system. So you're able to go in and turn on some transit layers, and we have a list. Right now we just have the Maryland Transit Administration in here, but you can go and you can create your own transit layers that shows bus routes, bus stops. You can click on an individual route and it'll tell you when the next bus is going to appear at that particular stop. And you can actually visualize where the buses are in real time on the map as well. And we're happy to integrate your agency's transit data, assuming it's in a GTFS format. But most, we're not aware of where all the GTFS feeds are. So if you're working with a particular agency and you know that they have the data in GTFS already, send us an email, support@ritis.org, and we'll work to integrate that data as soon as possible. We've recently added Illinois sensor data, and we're particularly excited to welcome MassDOT to the RITIS platform as well. They've now gone all in, and we're working to integrate their data into the system slowly but surely, but there's already progress there. And because of MassDOT's partnership and because of the really nice data sharing agreements that the coalition worked out with all the data providers, everyone else in the corridor can also see mass dots data as well. That's a nice add for the corridor. We've also been diligently working to update all the volume data. Volume data is used for the user delay cost calculations, and we've recently updated Maryland, Virginia. We're working on a few other states as well. But just as a reminder, it's really, really important for agencies to get us their updated volume data sets. As time progresses, the number of TMCs that are put into the map are increasing, and they're increasing pretty sizably over time. What happens is if you gave us your volume data 5 years ago and you haven't been updating it, then as time progresses, the number of segments that have volume data are actually decreasing over time. And so that can artificially skew some of your user delay cost reports that you might run in the system. So please, please, please give us a call, send us an email. We will help you get your latest volume data sets added into the system. It'll make all the tools run much better for you. We also recently updated the NPMRDS version of the Probe Data Analytics Suite. There's now an option for agencies to see not just what the NPMRDS covers on the National Highway System, but to be able to go in and click a button and switch between just the NHS and then the full TMC network. There's a full TMC network. There's just the NHS network. There's a little button that you click, a little checkbox that you click down in the lower left-hand corner of the coverage map that lets you switch between and see what segments are available. And then there have been tons and tons of bugs that we have been fixing over the last few months. We do this all the time. It usually happens in the background, and we don't talk too much about it, but there's been well over 50 bugs that we've been fixing. And again, if you notice anything screwy as you're using the tools, just send in a support request to support@ritis.org. We'll ticket it, and we'll get it fixed as soon as possible. Now, there's lots of other work that's still in progress. The bottleneck ranking tool, within the next month, we'll be deploying the new bottleneck ranking tool that will no longer be dependent on the Flash player, and we'll be completely done with the migration of this tool over to a new modern framework, which will be great. We're also working on a new advanced road selection tool. It'll make it easier for states, specifically states that are working with subsegment data from INRIX, to be able to go in and really refine your geographic search to get exactly the road segments that you want. A number of agencies are using our detector tools. The detector tool is kind of like a Probe Data Analytics Suite, a really light version of the Probe Data Analytics Suite. But it's meant specifically for speed sensors, so like inductive loop detectors and side-fired RTMS, wavetronic detectors, that sort of thing. We have a whole suite of tools that just looks at the detector data, but those need to be migrated away from Flash as well. So we're beginning that work now, and you'll see some updates to those tools. There's a whole section of the timeline tool that deals with media uploads. I'll talk about that in a minute. I've got some slides for that. And we're also building in the ability to look at after-action review documents that agencies put together in the event query tool. Then we are working on some new route analysis functions in the trajectory analytics. We have a working group that is set up to analyze the route analysis tool and give us feedback on the performance. This particular function is still probably 3 or 4 months away from being deployed, so that's going to be exciting for those of you who are working with trips and trajectory data. And earlier in the webinar, Denise mentioned the updates for the causes of congestion pie chart project, also known as TDADS, that we're working on, and we want to thank everyone who's been participating in that steering committee group. Thank you. Then we're working on some reliability widgets. Those of you who use the dashboard in the Probe Data Analytics Suite will notice there's a user delay cost widget. There's some bottleneck ranking widgets. We're building in a reliability widget as well, and that's about a month and a half away from being deployed. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to add in as many new transit layers as possible from your neck of the woods. So as you see issues or as you see transit data feeds in your neck of the woods, please email them to us so that we can get them integrated into this, the platform as soon as possible. Let me give you a quick preview of what we're doing with respect to adding attachments to the incident timeline and the event query tool. Many agencies have access to these timelines because we're getting a lot of really good data from them. And within the timeline tool, you actually have the ability to upload pictures, video, press releases that the media are putting out about incidents, and that is meant to help you go back and really see what was happening during the management of this event. And there's a little button up in the upper right-hand corner that you click, and it allows you to add attachments to the timeline, and then those attachments then pop up within the timeline itself. You can see what was added there. And then putting your mouse over the attachments then pops up a display window over on the right-hand side that you can scroll through, and you can see all the documents that were updated, kind of like a picture preview. Clicking on them then makes those pictures or videos bigger as well. So here I've clicked on one, and now it's popped up the larger image. This is a big tanker truck incident that we had on the American Legion Bridge in DC. Then you click this little right arrow, and it'll just cycle through all the pictures and videos that are associated with this particular incident. And then the event query tool that we deployed within the last quarter, we're also working in the ability to go back and look up individual incidents within this event query tool, and we'll show you how many documents or associated media types have been appended to each of these events. And kind of like within the timeline tool, you can put your mouse over one, and it'll tell you how many attachments there are, how many of them are videos, images, documents, or links. And really the impetus for this was to allow agencies to put together some really nice after action reviews and then store them indefinitely within this suite, so you can always go back and find them and bring them back up for additional analysis and review later on. So you click on them, and then the media pops up, and just like with the timeline tool, you can scroll through them and review them. And all of you have the ability to upload media to incidents. This is the tanker truck that flipped over on the American Legion Bridge, and you've got someone out on the scene actually operating a drone and flying it. And you're just trying to document everything that happened at the scene is important for a lot of these incidents. And so that's a brief overview of what we'll be working on over the next few months before our next user group meeting. Now is the time when we open up the floor to get input from you all. You're our users. You're the ones that are funding these tools. You're the ones that are using them hopefully every day. And we need to hear from you about what is working, what is not working, what functionality you wish existed but doesn't exist. And everything that you say gets documented, and we try to build out designs for it and try to ultimately build those into the suite. So here's where we will take a pause and let people start to type in questions, comments, complaints. Let us have it, because the tools aren't going to get better unless you tell us.
Michael, you see the first comment from Christian. Is there a documented process to get you updated volume?
Yes, there is. Let me find a link to it, and I will post it in just a second. And Matt also said, what is the best way for individuals and agencies to request upgrades and enhancements for consideration? Start off by sending an email to support@ritis.org, and that gets tickets created that then all of our development staff takes a look at. If you have specific examples of what you're looking for, even if it's just something that you've sketched out on a sheet of paper and taken a picture of it and emailed it to us, that is helpful. Then the process is we usually reach out to you. We set up a meeting. We'll do a webinar with you where we can talk through what it is that you're looking for and make sure we truly understand the request. Then we do a back and forth until we get it right. If it's a big feature request, we then sometimes stand up these working groups to make sure everyone is on board with the new features that we're working on. If it's smaller, we can usually work just directly with you on that. But if you haven't submitted a request in the past, it's kind of a fun process, I think. You get to go through a few iterations of Imagineering, so to speak.
All right, while we're waiting for additional questions, I'll ask a quick one. Michael, you mentioned when you were talking about the bug, you mentioned an evacuation layer or something, and I wasn't really sure what that was.
So yeah, we have evacuation documents from, I think, 6 or 7 different states. And these are documents that state where the evacuation routes are for different types of evacuation scenarios. It also has PDF documents about how to manage traffic at each intersection, like how you might need to restrict turning movements, where you might need to put up barriers, how you need to retime the traffic signals, all that sort of stuff. We ingest that data from agencies, and then we build it into the RITIS website, because most agencies that have evacuation plans, those plans are huge, and they sit in a notebook or a big binder on someone's desk, and they just collect dust. And God help you if you ever actually do need to evacuate an area, finding that document, opening up, and knowing which page to look at can be difficult. So we try to digitize all those and put them into the RITIS site directly to make it really easy for large groups of people to access them when needed. And the way we do it is we also have the ability to filter by evacuation scenario. So let's say you need to evacuate the White House. You could click a button and it would get rid of everything except what you need to get people away from the White House. Or 3 Mile Island goes critical up in there's a meltdown in Pennsylvania. You need to get people away from there. You can filter on those evacuation scenarios as well.
That's
so
very cool. So if you go ahead.
Go ahead.
If a state has submitted that stuff to you, then they will know where it lives. Is that right?
Yeah, and everyone should be able to see it. It's not something we hide. I can't share my screen right now.
Can you tell us where it is, just to take a look at it?
Yeah, so if you're on the RITIS website and you're looking at the RITIS map, on the right-hand side you have the layer list. And if you expand the layer list, there will be a layer called evacuation support. Okay. And if you click the little arrow to the left, don't turn it all on at once, it'll be a mess. But if you click the little arrow to the left of that, then it'll show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different layers that are associated with evacuations. And if you click on the traffic control points, for example, it will then turn on all the little icons for the traffic control points. If you click on a traffic control point, then it'll bring up the document that explains how to manage that particular location. And then in the upper left-hand corner of the map, there's a scenario filter. and you can click on that and choose each of the states that we have evacuation documents for, and then there'll be a bunch of scenarios. So I'm looking at Maryland right now, and there's an evacuation scenario for the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. There's one for the entire city of Baltimore. There's one for BWI, Calvert Cliffs power plant, and some of the military bases. And each state has different sets of evacuation scenarios.
All right. And then I'm not sure how to say his name, but somebody from Maryland, Diavamani, suggested that you mention the FIDM plans and that they're there for more local detours, right?
Yeah, so FIDM stands for Freeway Incident Traffic Management Plan. And that is essentially whenever there's at least a 50% closure of the lanes out on the roadway, we automatically pop up these FIDM plans, which tell you in a very detailed fashion how you can detour people around these lane closures on the interstates. And it goes into the level of detail of like how many signs you need, exactly where you need to put the detour sign, how you need to retime the traffic signals. It even has the phone numbers of everyone you need to call when you're about to implement that plan. Now, we only have those for states that have given them to us, and I think we only have those in Virginia and Maryland right now. I don't quite remember. But if other states have those, we're happy to put them in the system for you. It's relatively easy for us to do.
Excellent. Well, that was a good little tutorial there on that while we waited. Matt Glasser did have a comment. He said a few district offices have requested a tool to identify locations where speeding may be a problem and make speed studies quicker to conduct.
So there is actually a speed alerting feature within RITIS. It is a rather expensive and difficult feature to implement and run. So we've only done it for one state thus far that has specifically asked for and is paying for it. I honestly haven't looked at it in a very long time, but maybe that is something that we can discuss during the next user group meeting. We can do a demonstration of it and talk about the different use cases that exist for that specific tool. Now, you do have to be careful. Some of the data providers are now capping the data at the speed limit. So, that tool may not necessarily be useful for every state, depending on who you're buying data from. But I think the agency that is using that tool today isn't using it to identify speeders. They're looking at slowdowns. Where are the speeds dropping below some threshold, and using that as a way to alert operations staff to go and take a look at potential problems on the roadway that need addressing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would find that interesting at a future user group meeting.
Okay. Well, speaking of future user group meetings, we actually have a poll that we want to put up. We're always seeking guidance and advice from the agencies as to topics that they want to hear about. So today you heard a couple of great presentations on project prioritization. We are seeking input on the topics that you want to hear covered next time. And this can be a topic that you want us to discuss, or maybe it's a topic that you've already, your agency is doing something cool about it and you want to provide a presentation. This is your time to type in some suggestions. It's free text entry, and we will take those into consideration, review them, and reach out to you so we can make sure that we're covering your needs. So we'll just stay quiet for a little bit and give people a chance to type. Thank you for those of you who have entered in suggestions already. We'll continue to remain quiet while people keep typing. Justin, is it possible to keep this poll visible while we move forward, or do we need to close it out before we? Was that a yes or a no?
Yeah, that's a yes. We'll just kind of
okay.
it off here.
All right, cool.
All right, good to go.
Is that your last slide, Michael, or do you have one more?
That is it.
There we go. All right, well, with that, I will turn it over to your new co-chair, Matt Glasser.
Thanks, Kelly. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say, thanks to Kelly. I've in the 2 years I've been coming to these, they've been great, and really appreciate the leadership that you provided, and certainly appreciate the confidence that you guys have in me to keep the great momentum going. Also, just want to thank Jason, Shahram, and Michael as always for great presentations. Learned some really great information, and glad to have some new perspectives on how we can use this tool. As just a reminder to everyone, the meeting slides and the recordings will be posted on the Coalition website here shortly. And certainly look forward to some great presentations coming up here in the coming months. Look forward to hearing them and seeing you guys shortly. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, Matt. And just a last slide that talks about the contact information if you need anything. Please feel free to contact any of us at the emails listed.